Record.
Wow, she's floating.
These on? I don't know. Those are on.
How do you tell?
Good accident yesterday
I
morning.
gotta get in the train. Welcome everyone to North Ogden City Council. Meeting now is in order. We'll begin this meeting with an invocation and pledge of allegiance by Council Member Barker. Please mute your phone so that we don't have any disturbances during the meeting.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful that we could gather this evening as North Ogden residents and that we could come and support our outgoing mayor and council member and also support the new mayor and council as they come in. We're grateful for the support of this community, and please bless that we will strive to do that's best for North Ogden and lead and guide this city forward. And these things we say in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Everyone rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to preface this meeting just a little bit and thank this wonderful council that we've had up here past 2 years that I've been affiliated with them. They've been great people, honest and upright in all that they do, and it's great to work with them. I appreciate each one of them, and especially as we have Councilman Turner leaving this evening as well, so we wish him well. Especially like to thank my good wife. She's always there to support me in whatever responsibilities I have, and she stuck with me for almost 55 years, so if you'd like to give her a Purple Heart before you leave, please do so. She's been wonderful to help me out in the various responsibilities that I've held over the years. We'd like to begin the meeting with a consent agenda. And that would be discussion or action to consider November 12th and November 19th council meeting minutes.
Mayor, we have the swearing in on the agenda before the consent.
Consent first.
Okay, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
It's been moved by Councilman Swanson to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Been seconded by Councilman Barker. Barker. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, this is a special evening as we change administrations here in North Ogden. We have Council-elect Ryan Barker, Phil Swanson, Charlotte Ekstrom, and Cheryl Stoker that will be sworn in this evening. And then we have Mayor-elect Neil Berube. And I made sure he didn't exit the building. I tried to start the meeting a half hour early, but he wouldn't let me do it, so. It's wonderful to have them here this evening, and we'll proceed with the agenda with swearing in the youth council members first, if they'd come forward. Maybe we could introduce them first.
Oh, let's go ahead. Here. I want you to introduce yourselves to the council and mayor and your position.
I'm Hope Elmer. I'm mayor.
I'm Herman Armendariz, and I'm the secretary.
Jordy Elmer, rep.
Thank you. Welcome. It's wonderful to have you here.
Also, mayor and council, we have just gotten a new youth council advisor. Elaine Fernie has consented to do that for us, and her son Benjamin and Raquel Marie will help them out.
Okay.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
I have a document for you each sign. I need your signatures right here, and there's one for each one of you. This is Holt's, and this is Jordy's, and yours is right there. The rest. Thank you. Council?
Okay. Okay, we'll begin swearing in the council. To begin with, Ryan Barker, if you'd step forward.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and of the State of Utah,
and of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Thank you. Rob.
Yep.
Sign it. Let's take it over.
Next one, Phil Swanson.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United
the
States
Constitution of the United States
and of the State of Utah,
and of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
You can take it.
Do what?
Take it up to your seat.
Councilwoman Cheryl Stoker.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey, and defend
obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United
the
States
Constitution of the United States
and of the State of Utah,
and of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of my office
of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
And our newest one, Councilwoman-elect Charlotte Ekstrom.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and of the State of Utah,
and of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Thank you. Okay, let's see, this one's yours. And if you'll just hold that, and then we'll get you right seated.
You can take your seat up on the stand.
I think her nameplate's right here. She's got it. Wanna just get that up?
I see Councilman Severin. He's not being sworn in tonight because he's in for the long haul. So you can swear at him after if you like. So, our next one, Mayor-elect Neil Berube.
Raise your right hand and I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Utah,
and of the state of Utah,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Over here.
Wonderful leadership for our city. Thank you all.
You get to put that up.
I need it. Thank you. Thank you.
Hold on, I'm trying to get one thing.
Well, it might be a good time to dismiss all those who just came for the swearing in. Thank you.
Members of the ward. What? Oh.
It is.
Good there, guys. I'm not used to getting my picture taken, Mark.
Thanks for coming.
Love you, brother.
Good to see you.
I'm gonna go.
Thanks, Marky.
Love you, buddy.
Love you. Spencer, you demand.
Photo bombers.
Oh, yeah, Dad might be, I don't know.
Congratulations, brother.
Well, it'll be a short one if I do. It's all good. Okay, thanks, man. Thanks, Bob.
It's good.
It's just right there.
Oh, it's a done deal now, John.
I'm excited. If you get impeached, do you have to go to the Senate for trial, or how does that work?
I did. I don't know why, but I did. Did you?
Actually,
I thought first night might not be good, but the second time will be fine. I didn't. I thought I'd better wait till the second time.
You guys get down to business. Good to see you. What?
Thanks, I think.
Thanks, I think. Well, you know what you're doing every Tuesday, correct? They want to start a meeting. There we go. Do you want to stay and watch this in action for a second? We're going to stay for a minute and just watch how this goes.
That gives you a lot of confidence. It's like entertainment.
yeah.
Where are they?
They're right there.
You still have your old? Annette told me to tell you that she spent all night baking those cupcakes. And so she wants to make sure that everyone gets one to test out her cooking, so please grab one on the way. Well, thank you for attending this evening, and I want to express my appreciation to Mayor Chugg. He was called on in unfortunate circumstances to lead the city, and I'm sure he had plenty of other things to do, but I want to express my appreciation to him for his service, and know that we'll be calling upon you for some wisdom. I was joking with him. His smile was like this big. I said, "You're going that way, and I'm coming this way, and I'm feeling the weight." So, but anyway, I learned early on in my life that success comes with surrounding yourself with greatness. And I just want to thank the council, and I look forward to working with them. I think there's great things that can be accomplished in the city as we work together as one and have one North Ogden. So I'm excited to do that. So I won't bore you with any other comments, but appreciate you staying and hope that you'll attend future council meetings and participating with us in helping to keep North Ogden a great place to live. So we'll move to number 5 on the agenda, which is public comments. And just remind you that if you have any concerns about our outline of public comments, it's on the back of the agenda. So anyone with public comments, we would invite to come forward. Please state your name and address.
My name's Scott Barker, 2592 Barker Parkway. I'm just going to take a few moments. I've talked to everybody on the city council except for a few of you, and this way I can hit those without having to walk around one at a time. Saves me energy, saves me time, but it limits the discussion as well, which I kind of miss. I've been kind of pushing the idea of doing a grant for the Barker Park. And I think it's going to take professional grant writers possibly to do that. And I'd like to see somewhere along the city council get this idea going, because that land's been sitting there now going 20, 21 years. And we've got a lot of high density housing going in and a lot of young families coming in, a lot of little kids, and no place for them to go. And I hate to see the thought of them walking our streets, bored, cause a mischief to be kind word at times. I did my share growing up. I won't talk about that part because they all still remember it. But I think it can be done if we get professional. I think it can be done. I talked to Jim Urey earlier, and he said he had thought about getting people to college or students to write grants as a college classes. They're overseen by professors. And I hadn't even thought about that. I don't know what that is. I've talked to Councilman Severin. He has ideas. And I think it can be done. I think it would be a great benefit for the city to get it done. And I think it'd be well worth it if we could find a way to do that, knowing that professional grant writers wouldn't cost us anything. They only get a commission off of what they make for us. So the more they make for us, the more they make for themselves. I guess that's an incentive, right? And also, you know, I look forward to working with you guys on the new people as well as the old people in the future. I got a few more years on the commission. It'd be a real pain. I'll try not to. But I enjoy it. And yes, I have to air Mayor Chugg's comments. The honesty of the people I've worked with up here is very much so. I've learned to appreciate it. I got my eyes open real wide when I went on the planning commission. I knew nothing. Absolutely zero. And the people on here work real hard. And it's very detailed and a lot of stuff there. I wish Mayor Berube good luck. And Councilwoman Ekstrom, take a deep breath. It's good to see you here, and good luck, and thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Scott, I'm working really hard on that, starting this new year, so I'll keep you informed.
Keep me informed. I'd like to be involved with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Randy Wynn, 2412 Barker Parkway. I just wanted to add my thanks to Mayor Chugg that Mayor Berube just expressed, and to Councilman Turner for the good work that you're doing, and to congratulate all that have assumed their new offices. Congratulations to y'all.
Thank you, Randy. We hope to see you often.
Bob Buswell, 962 East, 3025 North. It's very amazing that people ask me why I come, and it's because I enjoy it so much. I really appreciate what Mayor Chugg has done, and look forward to working with Neil and listening to all the councilmen and their ideas. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Bob.
Dave Hume, 513 East, 1700 North. When I first read the minutes in August, Councilman Barker said that he had moved out of the city. I was disappointed because it didn't feel to me like it was being given the gravitas that it deserved, that it wasn't being taken seriously enough. And I've continued to be disappointed over the coming months, as I've seen a complete lack of inaction and a complete lack of official action that I'm aware of. And I think that there are a number of people that deserve to have this situation taken care of. The staff here should not really be put in the position of having to tell a sitting city council person that their office has been vacated according to state law. My personal opinion is that the correct thing to do in such a situation would be to resign, but I don't think that the other members of the city council should be in that position either, nor should any, especially in the year when they're trying to become elected themselves. And I don't think that any of the other candidates running should be in that position of having to try and enforce that sort of law. I think the voters that have to make a decision about whether or not to vote for someone that they prefer should have to be concerned about whether or not that person will be removed from office because of the state law. And I think that most of all, the concern it comes with anyone that was aggrieved by the continuance of someone to operate as a city council person, even though state law stated that the office had been vacated, such as someone who lost in the primary election and somebody who lost in the primary election and then subsequently someone who lost in the general election and could potentially sue the city over its failure to enforce state law, thus resulting in their inability to become elected and obtain those votes themselves. The same thing goes with developers. Any developer or anyone else that was affected by an action that was taken by this council in which, for example, Councilman Barker was the deciding vote, could sue saying, well, his vote doesn't really count because according to state law, that office was vacated. So I think as citizens, the citizens deserve to not have the city and their taxpayer money subject to that sort of legal risk. And I think also the reason that the law is in place is that the citizens deserve to have an elected representative that is subject to the laws that they're voting for. I think that's why the state law is so clear, and it is really clear. The law is clear that if you change your primary residence, that the office is vacated. And if that's not what Councilman Barker meant by I have moved outside of the city, then I would be curious to know what he did mean. We were founded as a nation of laws, and it has become increasingly popular to just let those laws slide when they don't fit with what we think they ought to be. When there's an attorney general from one party, often they won't support a law that was voted in by the other party. That's obviously, we're not a party system here, but I would hope that we would take the laws that we're subject to seriously, that we would enforce them, even when it's unpopular, even when it's inconvenient, and that if we're so sure that we shouldn't be enforcing them, that we find a way to get them changed so that we don't have any sort of subjective enforcement of the law. Because I think that's really the basis for tyranny, and it's a slippery slope. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. Any other comments?
I'm Catherine Warren. I live at 720 East, 2550 North in North Ogden, Utah. I think this is almost ridiculous. Ryan lived in the city when he was running. He didn't know his house was going to sell 2 weeks ago. He's doing everything he's supposed to, and from what I understand, following the law as to what is he's proceeding to, what's the word I want? Annex into the city. And I think we would lose a tremendous asset to our council to make such a big deal over such, and it's not illegal. He didn't do anything illegal in my eyes. And from what I understand what the law says, I just think we're wasting a lot of time an effort on something, let's be human and let's work with him. And I'm pretty sure he's following what the law says to do, and I don't think there's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any further public comments?
Hello, I'm Garrett Walthus. I live at 1257 East, 3075 North. And I just have a question. That's of clarification. Does Ryan Barker live in our city?
What's considered the city? Yes, I live in North Ogden City. I live in the boundaries of North Ogden City.
Okay.
It's well, we're going to talk about it, so I'll wait.
Actually,
that's the next item on the agenda.
Ryan lives in an unincorporated part of the city. He's within the boundaries. But Gary, we will be addressing that. Mr. Call.
So he hasn't moved out of the city?
Not outside of the city.
No, you haven't moved?
I've moved.
Oh.
It's a little bit complicated. We'll talk about this.
Okay.
To give you the information, which is the next item on the agenda. So I think if you stick around, you'll get the information you're seeking.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, we'll move on to number 6 on our agenda, which will address the issues that have been discussed by some of our residents. That's the talk about elected official Ryan Barker, principal place of residence. And John Call will lead us in that discussion, and we'll discuss the Utah Code 10-3-301. John?
Okay. So, Council, I know that, several of you have read my staff report, and I fielded a few questions over the weekend about this staff report. Let me start with 2 kind of principles on where I'm coming at with this analysis for you. The first is that Councilman Barker officially took his term of office that we're talking about this evening. So the 4-year term, the questions about what happened in the past and what that might do, as were raised by Mr. Hume in the discussion, that's something the city will deal with if it comes up as a question by any of those parties that might have been aggrieved. I think there's still some questions about whether that would even be an issue. So I don't want to complicate the issue with talking about the 2-year term and whether that seat was vacated. What I do want to talk about is what's the process that needs to happen to help follow the law as best we can. And the reason I say as best we can is because I feel like there is some confusion in the law, not necessarily in it's the Code 10-3-301, but in the code section under the election law that defines what a principal place of residence is. There's some confusing terms and some confusing things that don't necessarily apply to this situation or weren't anticipated by that code. So the other way I've approached this is every time there's a confusing portion of the law, the standard principles of code are you're supposed to interpret it in a way to make everything comply with itself, and where you can't, then you have to make a decision that would make the law stand as opposed to the law struck down. And so in this case, every time there's a confusing ordinance or definition or provision, the way I've interpreted it is erred on the side of supporting the election, supporting what the citizens of North Ogden decided with the election, which is to essentially that there hasn't been a loss of the principal place of residence. And the reason that's such a term of nuance in the code is that the code has several provisions in Title 20A that talk about when you lose your principal place of residence, when you don't lose it. And the thing that it always seems to kind of hinge on is the intent. For example, there's a one of the provisions says a person, and I'm using this one intentionally since there's a question about in the unincorporated is in the county. If a person is not a resident of a county or voting precinct, let me read it the right way. If a I did it again.
Relax.
I don't like to talk. Some people might disagree with that, but so it says a person is not a resident of a county or voting precinct if that person comes for temporary purposes and does not intend to make that county or voting precinct the person's principal place of residence. And that's 20A to 105 subsection 3F. And the reason that kind of comes into play is as you might know, Councilman Barker's home was sold 2 weeks ago. And he has been residing in a home that is in the county within the municipal boundaries of North Ogden City and one of our unincorporated islands. And so it focuses on this word or on this phrase, does not intend or does intend. And so the question is, what is the intent of the individual? Discussion is to, I think Councilman Barker has made it clear he's moving towards annexation. I'm not sure how, I haven't talked to you about what you're okay with me talking about, but he hasn't officially closed on the property yet.
You can't annex something that's not yours.
And so there's some things that come into play.
Yep.
And there again, going back to erring on the side of upholding the election, as we were reviewing this, we said, okay, how do we come into compliance with the law? The law clearly states, this is again in that section 20A 2-105, that a person doesn't lose their residency just because they leave the voting precinct or even the state of Utah. Many of you are aware of when people are deployed or serve on voluntary assignments across the world, they can still vote in the city. They don't lose their residency, even though they might not officially be a resident under the terms of the code. But for election purposes and for county or for eligibility for office, they focus on what's your principal place of residence. The code specifically says you don't lose it in one place until you gain it in another. And so there's a few ways that they talk about how you gain it in a new location. The best example is if you vote in another precinct or another state, then that's essentially relinquishing your current principal place of residence. Where this becomes nuanced is, even though the physical habitation won't change for Councilman Barker, the location of the principal place of residence, or the intent is, my understanding, for him to continue to stay in North Ogden City. It's just taking a little bit of time to move that physical piece of property back into the precinct under state law. And so it's attorneys, right? And part of the trouble is that when attorneys write code provisions, they don't always make sure that correlating code provisions mesh really well together. And I think this is a really good example where Code Section 10.3-301, I think, as was identified by Mr. Hume, is I think it's pretty clear, except that it specifically says when you're talking about principal place of residence, which in our case is kind of the key factor, you have to go to the election code. And when you go to the election code, it gets messy. And so I think that's compounded the confusion, is not all the provisions are in the same section of the code. So if the council would like to, there is a provision allowed in state code that the council can authorize what's called a temporary absence, or allow for a sitting council member to occupy a secondary residence temporarily for up to a year, and still maintain their seat on the council. In this case, what we would be saying is that Councilman Barker's principal place of residence is in North Ogden because he intends to come back, and so he hasn't officially lost it and moved it into the county. And so he's technically occupying a secondary residence. And where it gets messy is as soon as it gets back into the city, or as soon as it comes into the city as officially annexed, then he's not moving, but now his primary residence is affixed to that precinct. And it feels a little bit like a shell game, and I know that it's attorney's fault, 100%. And as you know, I'm an attorney. No attorney agrees on anything, or no two attorneys agree on anything. But in order to, there's two ways for Councilman Barker to clearly keep his seat, and for the council to provide some guidance. One is for you to say, this is a timeline. This is how the council will know or understand what the intent of coming back into the city really is. I think that's within the council's purview. In the staff report, we suggested the idea of doing 6 months from when Councilman Barker takes ownership, or you could pick another timeline of 9 months, regardless of if he takes ownership, so that some affirmative action has to happen to solidify the intent, or as I'm saying this ironically, and this is the loopholes that are in the code. In theory, Councilman Barker could move into someone's house for a couple nights every 60 days and never have officially left the city for more than 60 days. And I know that's not, so that's the reason the code's a little messy. And so I just want to make it clear. I think that what we're recommending is to have the council discuss the first option, which is let's establish some timelines, talk about what's appropriate, and then move forward from there. I know Councilman Barker wants to serve. Obviously you don't run for office unless you want to be on council, because it's not a fun process. But any questions you have for me before we start? So to do that, you have to do there's also a public comment on the question of occupying a secondary residence for up to a year. Any questions before we go to that point, or?
Could we hear from Councilman Barker? Do you have some comments?
What do you want to hear?
Well, we surely need to understand your intent, and I think we went through this in the election process a little bit too. So
And it's like I've said, you can't annex something you don't own. So I can't annex my house because I don't own it. So, and what's funny is if you read this code, the same one, 20A-2-104, subsection 4, G, the location of the real property owned by the person. If I don't purchase that house, I'm never violating the code. If you want to go through it. So that's where it gets tricky. Once I purchase a home, then it becomes, I've moved outside the city. But I haven't purchased a home, so the way I understand it, and I'm not an attorney, I'm just your firefighter, but if I don't purchase the property, then I've never moved outside of our city. So I don't know. My intent is to annex it into the city, but you can't annex something that you don't own. Unless you want to pay the annexation fees for somebody else.
And one thing I forgot to mention, council, is I know of at least 2 lawsuits in Utah over this very issue. One dealt with filing for candidacy, was down in San Juan County. The question was, do they live in Utah or in Arizona? Another one was actually in Alta. If many of you might not be aware, but the mayor of Alta, his family does not live in Alta, but he runs the general store and has a room there that he sleeps in to keep his principal place of residency in the city, and has done so for 12 years, 16 years, been the mayor for quite a while. And that was fought in court. And essentially what happens is when the courts are looking at it, they typically will always err on the side of upholding the election. And so that's the route that I did in this analysis.
On that note, I'm a firefighter. We sleep at the fire station. It's in North Ogden.
I'm glad, Ryan, because I thought John was going to ask for people to let you sleep in their homes 2 nights a week. So,
Just gave me another option.
So that's everything I have. If the council doesn't have anything, then it would be a public comment time, specifically regarding the option of allowing the secondary residence for up to a year.
council, any further comments? If not, we'll open it up for public comment.
Susan Clements, 668 East, 3125 North. So, Councilman Barker, so you had a home, you had a home in Ogden City, or North Ogden City, within the city limits.
I moved
Yeah.
around the corner.
Okay, and so you put that up for sale?
Yep.
And
After
it
the
sold.
election.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And now you're moving around the corner into a spot that
You
is
wanna pull
not
up- Yeah, we can pull
legally.
up on the map. No, it's up
I'm
on-
just
yeah.
trying to
So
put
we
it
can
in.
show you. Yeah.
Put it in. So you just moved around a corner into a spot of land that is unincorporated.
Yep.
So it's county property, but it's not North Ogden City property.
Yet.
But it is within.
Yeah.
North Ogden City.
It's on Fruitland Drive.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's plain and simple. And your intent is to.
I'm right across the street from the amphitheater.
Oh, okay.
That
I would say that was North
my house
Ogden
has been
City, too.
standing since 1910.
Oh, I think that's, but it's not incorporated
No, 'cause it's
into
an
North
old-
Ogden
no,
yet,
not
and your
yet.
intent is to annex it in. Okay, thank you very much.
Betcha.
Dave Hume, 513 East, 1700 North. It may surprise you to learn that I actually think the law is wrong. I think that the law should have been written in such a way that annexation was taken into account and that this exact situation was allowed. I think that's a mistake on the legislature's part, and it's one that I hope that the city will officially note to the legislators and ask them to correct. I think that there are a number of things that the city can do within their own code, which mostly mirrors the state code, where it doesn't supersede. Obviously, we can't supersede state code, but we can issue clarifications. The other problem with the state law, among other things, I guess I should point out that the legislature shouldn't have a law where you have to jump through hoops, like John said. I think they should make it more clear. But the way that we could clarify this, in addition, is it doesn't ever address. It only addresses what happens when an elected official moves. It doesn't address what happens when, by some other mechanism, an elected official finds himself outside the city boundaries. Obviously, somebody could do that fraudulently, like not tell anyone that they had done it. They could accidentally move to a property that they didn't realize. They could actually de-annex the property. And so there's at least 3 other ways you can find yourself outside the city without moving. I think that it would be a good idea for us to clarify in our law that, like notwithstanding what the state law says, anyway, something like that. So I appreciate you looking into this, and I'm not convinced, John, that we would win on your arguments in court, but I appreciate that you've been thinking about them. So, thank you.
Any additional comments?
Brent Call, 835 East, 2100 North. I guess just a question for John, clarification for me. I was just looking at the code, and And what he's saying is, I understand, is correct, that the council could grant an exception in this case, except under paragraph 6A1, it says that they can grant that exception as long as that officer may reside at a secondary residence outside of the municipality while still maintaining a principal place of residence within the municipality for a continuous period of up to 1 year during the officer's term of office. So it sounds to me like you would have to have maintained a residence within the city while still living outside of the city for that extended period of time. So I guess I'm just a little confused with, we don't have a principal residence within the city right now. I think we're splitting hairs. It's kind of semantics, but and I think Mr. Barker's a great councilman, and I would hate to lose him, but I also agree with Dave Hume that we're a nation of laws, and we need to abide by those laws. But if there's a way to get around that, I'm in favor of it.
Thank you, Brent. Any further public comments? John, just a point of clarification. Councilman Barker indicated he does sleep in the city 2 nights a week.
Not a week. A month.
A month?
Or every 6 months, every 60 days. It's
okay, every 60 days.
I try not to sleep down there more than I have to.
Well, I was talking to your wife, and she was hoping you would more often.
But I was going to say, if we need, I've got a brother, a sister, aunts, uncles. I'm sure I could rent a room from a bunch of family members in the city.
Well,
but whatever makes it easy.
So to kind of talk about that provision, you would think principal place of residence is not a confusing term. The trouble is when you get into the election code, it causes some confusion. For example, it says a person's principal place of residence does not change solely because the person is present in Utah, present in a voting precinct, absent from Utah, or absent from the person's voting precinct. And then it talks about those for things like if you're in jail, like you don't lose your principal place of residence just because you go to jail, or in the military. And then it also says, and this is kind of the one that adds or causes some other consternation, which is a person has not lost their person's principal place of residence in Utah or a precinct if that person moves to a foreign country, another state, or another voting precinct within Utah for temporary purposes with the intention of returning. And so it's kind of this weird thing where Councilman Barker has moved into a new precinct, which is in the county, but has the intent of coming back into the city's precinct. He's just bringing his property with him. And so it's kind of this, and that's what I'm talking about, that I don't think the code anticipates someone leaving and then annexing back in. It does talk about if you are in a portion of unincorporated and you get annexed into a city, your time in the annexed portion counts towards your ability to run for office. So, for example, Councilman Barker's father lives next door and has done so for decades. If he was annexed into the city, he would automatically, him and his wife could run for city office, hold any position, because of the way the law is written. We actually did have a member of the city council at one time rely on this they sold their house, moved into their in-laws' house for a couple of months while they then moved up into the house that they ultimately occupied. It wasn't an issue because it was less than 60 days and it was, clearly identified in the code. It's this weird nuance of moving out and then bringing the property back with you into essentially, and it'll actually be the same voting precinct as far as the county's concerned.
So John, as our city attorney and as staff, what is your recommendation for consideration by the council?
So I'm recommending the council look at a specific time frame and say, this is how we're going to clarify the law, and say, we will know Councilman Barker's intent of is he really coming back into the city if he can complete the annexation within this time frame of owning the home. And also, if the council would like to add, you could say, or within this many months from today.
We're supposed to mute our phones.
No, I thought I did. I'm not smart enough. I've been an elected official now.
So those, and, or in theory, if the council doesn't want to, then there could be the reliance on using the fire station to maintain the principal place of residence. Understanding it's a weird nuance under the code. From staff's perspective, we think it's better to have an official council action that says this is how we're going to interpret and apply the code for us. And then maybe we look at adding some clarification in our actual code moving forward.
Recognize Councilman Swanson.
I've spoken with John at length over the weekend and via email today, and one of the principal concerns I had was in 10.3.301 subsection 6A. In there, it talks about that we can give consent, that the municipal body can give consent within a 60-day period. And so my concern was that Councilman Barker had been in this situation for longer than 60 days. So were we in a position where we actually had the authority? And that's when John clarified for me that this is dealing with the term that we are in now, not the term that has gone past. So that answered the question I had about, are we within the 60-day period where the state gives the municipality the opportunity to give this consent and establish a length of the consent. So I appreciate John walking me through. John can attest that I asked the question in about 40 different ways because I'm not an attorney and I don't read attorneyese the same way an attorney does.
Any other comments from council?
I just had a question. I mean, Ryan, is it?
We recognize Councilwoman Ekstrom.
Thank you. So I'm assuming that the farmhouse is owned by a Barker family trust.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the trust's intention to annex, or is that just
It's my intent.
your intent? And then are you going to purchase the house from the
I have already
trust?
started.
And you started that?
I've already started the mortgage paperwork and all
Okay.
that, and I'm waiting to close in the next couple weeks.
Okay.
And then so either I can have the family trust, which they said they'd annex it, but it requires the same documents as closing, so we pay for them twice. Or we can just do it all at closing, and then it just smoothly goes into the annexation.
Well, to me,
But if we annex it under the family trust and then I buy it, then it we're doing the same thing twice.
I think his intent is clear. I think it's kind of an odd thing that we have these islands in the city anyway. The Barker farm is like as North Ogden gets. And so it's like, it's kind of this weird, just as John pointed out, it's just an odd thing. And unfortunately, when we get legalese going back and forth, I want to follow the law, but what can we do to make it so that his intent is to follow the law? So I want to make that process as painless as possible.
I think John has a recommendation that the council would like to pursue that would clarify this and help Councilman Barker define what intent is. I think he's expressed that, what his intent is, and I think what John is asking us to do is, as a council, to clarify that with some dates. Is that correct, John?
I think that helps everybody. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
So would it be if I understand it right, we would like to have a motion that would allow Councilman Barker 6 months after obtaining title to the property to annex in, or 9 months, correct understanding?
That's the recommendation, yes.
So we have a recommendation from staff. Do we have a motion?
I move that we give Councilman Barker the 9 months from our recommendation tonight to make this annexation complete.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's have a roll call vote.
Excuse me, Mayor, does that include the 6 months after obtaining title?
The motion was just 9
Just the
months
9,
from
okay.
tonight.
But it could be done sooner than that.
And I think if there's some complications, yeah.
That was again, if we had discussion. I'm not saying I'm against it, but how long did it take Public Works to annex into the city?
A couple of years.
But it could, I mean, what if a complication arises and it's longer than 9 months? What happens if it takes 10?
Once again, I think the council could.
I mean, my intent, if
re-examine
something
the
happens and it draws
timeframe.
out longer than 9 months, then we talk about this again in September.
I think there's some complications, John. I imagine the council could re-examine that if there's, if Councilman Barker is doing all he can and something out of his control. Or are we setting this in stone?
I think the only issue would be that the way the code is written is it says specifically you're supposed to make that decision in 60 days and you can go for up to a year. And so if we're in September and asking to extend it, the code doesn't talk about
I
that.
establish my second
And so-
residence at a family member's house.
I mean, that,
I just want to know I'm not saying that it's not going to take, I imagine it'll go quick. As in quick, 3 to 4 months.
and for the new council members, there was a lawsuit dealing with a property boundary dispute, so we couldn't annex the
Right.
Public Works building.
But I explained, or I talked to someone tonight, we did a survey between my family's farm and my neighbor's farm, and there's 20 feet discrepancy between the fence lines. So what if I go and do a survey again, and you can see it's broke off, but one neighbor says that I've got a discrepancy, and I'd be coming to a lawsuit. That's what I'd like to know. What's going to happen if it takes longer than 9 months?
So in that case, it would probably be the recommendation that I would make to make sure that you were sleeping within the city
Okay.
a couple nights every 60 days.
And I will, yeah, okay.
Got that option.
Kim, is that okay?
There.
That's okay, Kim. Okay.
Recognize Councilman Swanson.
John, in that instance, with the uncertainty that could be there, the code says we can grant this exception up to a year. Is that correct?
Yes.
Would it be advisable that we give him that year then to give as much time as possible in the event of there being an issue?
I think that there's no harm in maximizing the code.
It's 3 months more.
Yeah. I was trying to balance a 3-month annexation window with the year option and just, I mean, pick 6 months because it seemed like it would work within 6 months or 9.
I expect it to be done by then, but.
Yeah.
So do you want me to clarify and restate my motion?
Yeah, we do have a motion, so if you want to restate that and withdraw your motion and restate.
I withdraw my previous motion and move to, with council approval, to give Councilman Barker 12 months to be able to complete the annexation process.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Severing and a second by Councilwoman Ekstrom. Any further discussion? Okay, let's call for a roll call vote. Councilwoman Stoker,
Yes.
I'm not
did you want to
voting on it.
withdraw
Yep,
for
I'm out.
conflict? You're out?
At this vote.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Councilwoman Ekstrom,
Yes.
Councilman Severing,
Yes.
Councilman Swanson.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks for breaking me in, Ryan.
I was really hoping for a tie, so you'd have to vote.
Can I reconsider my vote,
Yeah.
Mayor?
Don't break me in that fast. Okay, we'll now move to item 7 on the agenda. Discussion and or action to consider a resolution appointing Councilmember Ryan Barker to the Mosquito Board, and I'm the presenter on that. We have the option to appoint a citizen or a council member to represent the city on the Mosquito Abatement Board. I've spoken with Councilman Barker. He is willing to serve. So we'd look for a motion to approve that recommendation.
Annette, what's the resolution number?
01-2023. 01-2020.
01-2020. Mayor, I'll move that we approve Resolution 01-2020, appointing Councilmember Barker to the Mosquito Abatement Board.
Second.
Okay, we have a second, so we're looking for approval of Resolution 01-2020, is that correct?
Yes.
And I've been instructed that we should have a roll call vote on that, so Councilman Swanson?
Yes.
Councilman Severing?
Yes.
Councilman Ekstrom?
Yes.
Did you want to abstain on this one
I
too?
can
or-
vote on this one, yes.
You want to do it, is what you're saying.
I want to learn about mosquitoes. Carl had a great time on that board.
They're big in the county. Councilwoman Stoker.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Now move on to discussion item number 8, to consider a resolution appointing me to the sewer board. And the presenter will be our recorder, Annette Spenlove.
Council, there on the sewer board, the members of that board are elected officials, and they're usually the mayor of each city that's involved in that board. And Mayor Berube has said that he would like to serve on that board, so we need a motion for that.
Is the resolution 02-2020?
Yes.
2020?
Okay.
Yes.
I'd like to make the motion at the resolution number 02-2020 to appoint Mayor Berube to the sewer board.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, seconded by Councilman Swanson, to approve Resolution 02-2020. We need a roll call vote on that. Councilwoman Ekstrom?
Yes.
Councilman Severing?
Yes.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes.
Councilman Barker?
Yes.
Councilwoman Stoker?
Yes.
Thank you. Sounds like a stinky job, but I'll take it.
Learn about mosquitoes.
Well, it's either that or the one Ryan has that sucks.
Sucks.
Good point, Councilman. Good point.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
You gotta have humor in politics. We don't want to get too far out of line, but a little humor never hurt anybody. We'll move on now to item 9 on the agenda, which is a discussion or action to consider an appointment of a mayor pro temp. I'm the presenter on that. I would like the council to consider appointing Councilwoman Stoker as mayor pro temp to act in my absence,
Which won't be often, right?
which she's told me to get lost, so we'll take that. So looking for a motion to approve that recommendation. This be a resolution?
No.
Just
motion.
Just a motion.
So moved, Mayor.
Councilman Swanson, recognize your motion. We're looking for a second.
Second.
Councilwoman Ekstrom?
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, we need a roll call vote on that also. Councilman Swanson?
Yes.
Councilman Severing?
Yes.
Councilwoman Ekstrom?
Yes.
Councilman Barker?
Yes.
Well, Cheryl, Councilwoman Stoker, you in favor?
Yes.
All right, thank you for your willingness to serve. Our next item is a discussion or action to consider a proclamation commemorating North Ogden City School Week. I have the proclamation here. Is it okay if I read that?
Here's the proclamation.
So that's the staff report.
I'm new at this, all right? First night, Mayor. I told you we'd be calling you. Appropriate to read this out loud? Yep. This is Proclamation 2020-01, commemorating North Ogden City School Choice Week. Whereas all children in North Ogden City should have access to the highest quality education possible, and whereas North Ogden City recognizes the important role that an effective education plays in preparing all students in North Ogden City to be successful adults, and whereas quality education is critically important to the economic vitality of North Ogden City, and whereas North Ogden City is home to a multitude of excellent education options from which parents can choose for their children, And whereas educational variety not only helps to diversify our economy, but also enhances the vibrancy of our community. And whereas our area has many high-quality teaching professionals who are committed to educating our children. And whereas School Choice Week is celebrated across the country by millions of students, parents, educators, schools, and organizations to raise awareness of the need for effective educational options. Now therefore, I, S. Neil Berube, the mayor of North Ogden City, do hereby recognize January 20th through January 26th, 2020 as North Ogden City School Choice Week. And I call this observance to the attention of all of our citizens. Do we need to adopt that with the council?
No, you can
Okay,
just.
that's good. So we will adopt that as a proclamation of the city, Proclamation 2020-01. With that, are there any further public comments that citizens would like to make? Okay, any comments from council or staff? Recognize Councilman Swanson.
Just one thought that struck me in our last meeting from a resident that we have talked about in the past just very briefly, but I think it's something that we ought to recognize and incorporate in our meetings. I'd like to suggest that we change the on the agenda from invocation and pledge of allegiance to invocation/thought and pledge of allegiance, and that we invite more of our residents to participate in this, with their choice being they can offer a prayer in whatever belief system they have. If they choose not to, they can read an uplifting thought. I don't want us to get cornered into recognizing or following a particular religion's method of prayer or anything like that to open the meeting, just so that we recognize everyone and what they do or don't believe and give everyone that opportunity. So, Council, I'd ask you to consider making that change, that we say invocation or thought and pledge of allegiance.
And Councilman Swanson, I think that's a good point. We just came back from training in Logan. And I'm not aware, but I think it requires a policy by the city, John. And just knowing that you can't really prohibit even if it's a bad thought.
Right.
But it can be helpful with a policy. So I'm wondering if it would be good. John, do we have a policy in place regarding?
We just have a draft policy we had put together at one point, but it wasn't ever adopted. So
I think in regards to Councilman Swanson's comment, I think he's right on. We want to be inclusive with everyone in our city. And so would it be okay, Councilman Swanson, if we have staff prepare a policy to bring to the council to be adopted? I think that would be the safe way. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
And then just congratulations to all who have are now occupying seats that they weren't before. I want to see the pictures in 2 years or 4 years compared to how you look today.
Well,
you can't go any more gray, Mayor.
I know. But I do want to point out that Phil grabbed that seat very quickly with the departure of Councilman Turner.
It's nothing to do with the mayor.
Yeah, we had that discussion. He just said sitting in the middle he'd had his fair share of. So, and actually we may mix things up a little bit more as we go forward. So, is that it, Councilman Swanson?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Councilman Severing?
Yeah, I actually have a few things on my mind that I wanted to just mention. First off, where's Dave? Dave? Dave does not get, Dave and the snow plow men plow women?
Mm-hmm.
Plow persons? Okay.
Let's call them plowers.
Plowers. I know that there are some in the city who maybe don't get plowed as quickly as they could. I did get one email this last snowstorm But thank you. The Public Works Department does an incredible job. So thank you, Dave. Appreciate that a ton. I had a nice conversation with Tiffany. Second thing, I had a nice conversation with Tiffany about the RDA money, and I would make recommendation that we consider using that RDA money toward improvements at the North Shore. So whatever staff would maybe need to do to be able to get that up and so that we can begin evaluating that for budget. Thanks to Annette and others who have been working on the new website. I hope everybody here is aware that you can now go to the website, the North Ogden City website, and you can actually sign up with your email address to receive a monthly newsletter. It's going to be one of my efforts, and I know Mayor Berube is big on this. All of us want to make sure that we're covering our bases with transparency and trying to get information out of the citizens. So if you're not aware of that, please make sure that you're part of that email system. And I'm wondering, in connection with that, Annette, if we couldn't actually put together some kind of nice professional postcard, as catchy as we can make it, that we could mail out to all of the citizens in North Ogden?
We could probably put it on their utility bill.
Okay, something that would get that into, even if we took a couple different approaches to make that work. But I know that's one thing I'm going to be working on. Even if we have to like fluorescent copies into something that would really be catchy.
Green.
Okay, green, whatever.
Fluorescent green.
And then last but not least, I had a chance to stop by and talk with Rob McCord on his mailbox. And we haven't made, I'm under the impression from my conversation with him that we haven't made any kind of concession there. And my personal opinion, we've got some precedents where we've helped some people last year with the water break. I think we need to be looking seriously at adjusting that ordinance of $100 and reaching out immediately as quickly as we can to make a concession there.
Blake and myself have had some conversation about this, and we understand things do happen. There's humans, right? And so occasionally this will happen, and I'm wondering when the ordinance was put in place if we were thinking about these very nice brick mailboxes that cost far more than $100. It might cost more than that to replace mine, which is, so I would, ask too that we reconsider that at the appropriate time and that we do get back to our citizen. I think we all on the council look at our citizens as our customers, so to speak, and we want to be responsive to them. So maybe we could reconsider that, John.
So we can, it wouldn't be hard to change. It's in a Word format. We can have it at next council meeting. As you know, staff can't give any more money until the council, because it was an official resolution, so it can only be changed by an official resolution of the council. So we can bring it for next meeting.
Okay, because I think we would like to take care of this citizen, and it doesn't happen often, but it happens, and so Councilwoman Ekstrom, recognize your
Yes, I
comment.
just, in support of my next door neighbor, I was just reminded as I had a conversation with my husband that as residents of that Barker Park area, the original development agreement was done with the city. So it was actually the city that specified that those mailboxes had to be built a certain way. So in addition to just it being the right thing to do, it was kind of one of the things that the city mandated, that the mailbox had to be built in that construction form, which was considerably more expensive than, I backed into my brother's mailbox just Christmas Eve. He fixed it for $10.
Maybe he'll come out and fix this one.
Yes, but laying brick is a little different. So I hope we can get a little bit more money for when things like that happen.
Okay, well, John, maybe you could bring a recommendation.
And we'll bring the information that was discussed last time as well as some from Public Works. And because I will tell you, the nuance will be, we probably need to talk if a plow hits it as opposed to the snow hitting it.
I think our policy now is the plow hitting it.
Yeah.
And probably not any need to change that unless somebody feels strongly, but I believe our policy is if the plow hits it. Any other comments? Phil, do you have anything to add there? Councilman Severing, is that everything you have?
I totally agree. Our citizens are our clients and they're our customers, so.
And I would just like to add too, it would be my intent to try to direct all of our citizens to the official face page of North Ogden to get their information. I know currently there are a lot of pages out there. I would like, and I'll work with staff on this, to incorporate a section in there that deals with Speak with the Mayor, where we can get feedback from our citizens and we can also let them know in as understandable terms as possible where we need their help and what's going on in the city. But it's going to take some work, I think, to kind of get people directed to that, the website, but that would surely be our intention. Councilwoman Ekstrom, do you have any other comments?
Nope.
Welcome, and thank you for your willingness to serve.
You too.
Councilman Barker?
Yeah, I got one. And it goes back to item number 6. My biggest hang up with this whole being put on the agenda, and it's not that I was opposed to it. I was in city offices on Thursday afternoon, and I was not meant or told anything about it until after it got posted. I would like to think that if we're going to post something on an agenda, maybe we should let the people know what's going on to an agenda if it's about them. Before I start getting phone calls and texts asking what's going on. I was just kind of blindsided, and it just felt like, I was in here Thursday afternoon and I wasn't told it was coming out, so.
John, maybe for new council members and for those who are in attendance here, maybe you could just briefly describe what it takes to get something on the agenda.
So typically when things, with the policy that the council, I think, set last year, it takes one council member or the mayor to put it on the agenda. Things are on the agenda. We talk about them in staff meeting. That's usually when we get the mayor's approval. This one was added by me because of the things that were coming from, the outside and dealing with, as I reviewed the code, having it resolved the first night as opposed to the next time. And we should have, and
And yeah, you apologized today, but
Always room for improvement. Opportunities abound. Councilwoman Stoker?
Just a couple of things. I think Phil was just tired of sitting by me.
What did you say? I'm sorry?
Yeah, just that.
Oh, no. I just got tired of handing you the
Selective
sweater.
hearing when it came to me. And also, kudos to the snowplow guys. I've gone out a couple of times with them, I've ridden with them, and I mean, they're amazing what they really do. I mean, I'm just amazed at all that they do and how careful they are, and they do feel bad when they plow your driveway back in. But it's like that snow has to go somewhere. So they really do a great job, and it takes a lot of time. I mean, I think I went out at 5:30, and we were out for 3 hours. And it's like we have over 100 miles of road that these guys plow. So it's pretty amazing. And also excited to work with all of you again and the new mayor. So, and just thank you for everybody and your input, and Dave for always coming, and you're always insightful. Appreciate that. And that's all. And staff, they're wonderful.
Thank you. Any comments from staff? Further comments?
John, will you pass these down? To the newly elected officials, the state legislature has Local Officials Day at the legislature, and it's January 29th. Our youth council goes down to that and participates in some activities down there, and then you will have lunch with all of them and our state legislators. I need to know if you're interested in going by the end of the week, because I need to get everyone registered. We usually meet here at 5:30 a.m. and because we want to be off by 6 to be there by 7. It's pretty hard to get a parking place. So anyway, please let me know right away if you're interested and able to go. So that's all I have.
John, you have some comments?
So we partner with the Special Olympics of Utah to do a polar plunge, which is this Saturday. So far, they have only raised $225 when I checked it this afternoon. Oh my gosh. And so we would like to encourage involvement. I know Councilman Swanson has taken the plunge.
Do it again.
But just you, residents, anybody, we like, part of it isn't our fault. I mean, we don't typically do all the advertising, but they had a change in staff, and it would be helpful to encourage as many people to participate as we can. I know in some years in the past, people have donated, or at one point we had an elected official who said, well, if someone raises this much money, I'll do it. And I think it got doubled what was asked to be raised. So if any of you want to offer yourself up, kind of like a dunk tank, then, that's an option.
Yeah, it'd be a great opportunity for you.
I'll do a lap for every $100 that I don't donate myself.
Lap for every 100. Okay.
We did last year 4 laps, right?
When you say we, do you mean you? Because I got out after 1 lap.
Well, you got out, but our
Councilman
Miss
Severn-
North Ogden did all 4 with me, and
I'll do the plunge, but I am not taking a lap.
So you're the money raiser for the plunge?
What's that?
You're raising the money for the plunge?
How much? What is it? $40 or $50? What was it?
40, I think it is.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take the plunge. I think that water thing a few years ago. What was the ice bucket?
The Ice Bucket Challenge. Yeah.
Well,
The ALS
I'll tell you
Ice
what.
Bucket
I think as city council, we ought to take the challenge.
Don't be getting carried away here.
So I triple
for
dog
yourself.
dare every city council member to participate in the polar plunge,
I'm okay with the city council members.
including
Anyway,
the mayor.
John,
Mayor, we believe in
thanks for your
leadership by
encouragement.
example.
I'm
Leadership
sure you'll
by
be
example.
participating, and thank you very much for doing that. What else do you have?
The budget is coming up. I know that's the first thing you want to hear on your first night in office, but we will get out a calendar of dates. It's typically it's a 3 or 4 month process, but we like to involve and get the councils involved early. Some cities rely on the staff to do all the work, and then they give it to the council, and the council has about a month to look at it. Our approach has always been to have the council involved from the beginning. It just seems to work better. And then the last thing is, we still would like to do an orientation for council members who'd like to. It'd be nice if everyone could, but take you to each department, introduce you to key staff, and maybe even show you some of the stuff they do. Let you go down in one of our water pressure relief valve stations and see what they do, and maybe even see the old ones compared to the new ones. We probably wouldn't make you go down in one of the old ones, but the new ones, you can see what the reason that we're upgrading them to these. It's better for the employees and better maintenance. But we'll email you and maybe try and find some dates that everyone can do to just let you see what goes on at the city. Most of the time, we'll probably be sent with police, parks, and public works. We're a little more boring in this building, but
Speak for yourself.
Oh, and that is exciting. So, anyways, we think that'd be nice for everyone to kind of get a chance to see all the facilities and everything that the council deals with. And it will be a public meeting, assuming there's 3 or more of the council members. So we would do it as a special meeting and publish the agenda and bring public with us. So that would be available to others who wanted to participate as well.
Anything else?
Nope.
Council?
I just want to say thank you. That's a huge vote of confidence for somebody who's just very new into the political arena. Thank you for your support, and I really appreciate it. I'm excited to work with our council and mayor, and I think we're going to do great things.
Thank you. And surely, I think we've got a great council here. And as we work together, I think there's many things that can be accomplished. I appreciate those who have stayed tonight in attendance with us. And as John mentioned, budgeting is coming up. This budget entails your tax dollars. And so there will be council meetings that are open for discussion, and we would value your input. And one of the things I think we're all committed to is inclusion. We value differing opinions. I think it helps us get better when we see everyone's perspective. And so I would encourage you to continue to attend council meetings and to contact us as your elected officials anytime you have great ideas that'll make the city better. We're a great place to live, but I think as long as we have the attitude there's always room for improvement, we can get better. So with that, we'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn tonight, Mayor.
Second?
Second, any discussion on that? If not, we will look for approval to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Aye.
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 All right, thank you.